Sports Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the All Sports Podcast with me, Matt, and joining me tonight, Joel. Hi, Joel.
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
All good, thank you. And James, how are you?
Yeah, all good. How are you guys?
Very well.
Yeah, not bad at all. On tonight's episode, this week's episode, we are going to have quite a heavy dose of football. There's a lot happening last week in Europe that we will cover off, and some more FA Cup magic again this weekend that we will drill into. There's quite a bit going on in the Premier League that we'll cover off. Latest F1 in Shanghai in China we will talk about as well a little bit, and then we'll get into to finish off Snooker World Championships and who's most dominant in what sports. Thinking specifically about Ronnie O'Sullivan, but we'll open up the discussion from there. So let's kick off tonight then with football, and great place to start, I guess, is probably going back to this time last week when Europe was on and both the English teams got knocked out. One thing I said last week to you guys was, is the really close title race affecting how the English teams are doing in the Champions League? I guess we now know the answer.
Yeah, we do, but I don't know if this shows the Premier League in the greatest light. We always call other leagues farmer leagues and etc. And two of our best teams have been knocked out by, obviously, Real Madrid did a bit of a job on City, and they shouldn't have got through if you look at the game as a whole. But I actually thought Arsenal would beat Bayern pretty comfortably. Like, these guys are 10 points behind Leverkusen over the course of a tie. They just didn't really show up in either night. So I don't know if it shows the Prem in that good of a light as a competition.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal went out pretty meekly in the end as well. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the weekend they have since kind of bounced back a little bit, but they had a rough week and definitely looked like the intensity that they were that they just couldn't keep the intensity that they were producing. They just couldn't keep it up. So, yeah, I think it's definitely a factor that the three of them are having to duke it out week in, week out, and the expectation. I don't know whether it's so much a physical thing, but definitely mentally, knowing that you have to go into every game and win it just to keep in touch is going to be taxing. But I don't want to use that as an excuse as well, because European sides are notoriously undervalued in this country during these ties, and Real Madrid can do that to anyone. And also, people are assuming that because Leverkusen are winning the Bundesliga, that Bayern must not be good. But, you know, Leverkusen are doing something unbelievable in over the course of this season. They're 45 games unbeaten now. You know, they're not capitalising on a Bayern slip up or anything. Like, they're blazing the trail. So yeah, I want to be careful about not just kind of dismissing that as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Bayern's games this year, they've lost to some terrible teams in that league.
Yeah.
Like, you would never expect them to lose to. I just don't know. Obviously, the easy thing to say is the Prem's more physical, teams are more competitive, and that makes these Cities, Liverpools, and Arsenals run out of steam towards the end of the year. There may be an argument for that. There is like a high level of competition in the Prem where you can get a bottom 4 team pop up and beat a top 4 team. I don't know whether you see the same in Real Madrid for that instance. So that's probably playing into it. But I think the expectation is definitely a huge part of it.
More promising news coming out of Europa, though. Joel, our Europa correspondent.
Yeah, I was fully engrossed in both the Europa Conference and the Europa League, because I'm so invested in the coefficients, which
yeah, you are.
Yeah, now looks gone. But
is there an update on that? Is it completely gone unless you win the Conference League now?
It is pretty much gone, because I think if a German team gets to a final, England can't get it. Okay. I think like France are still in with an opportunity, but there's something weird. Like for England to get it, a French or a German team can't win any of their ties, but PSG are playing Dortmund, so like that they would basically have to draw both the ties for England to still get that fifth Champions League spot. So it does look gone. It's just like a matter of it being confirmed, whichever way it goes. It does look more than likely that Leverkusen are going to, because they're like hot favourites for the Europa now, obviously. So, Europa League. So yeah, even if Villa went all the way in the conference, I don't think it would have a material impact on the coefficient.
It's changed so quickly, hasn't it? We were here a couple of weeks ago thinking like Liverpool still in it, Arsenal still in it, City still in it, and now they're all gone.
House Cards just fell down last week.
That end of year title, top four race even more interesting though.
Well, yeah, I mean, it focuses the mind. Like Emery actually spoke about it after the game against Bournemouth. He said, we know that fifth isn't. We pretty much know that fifth isn't going to get the Conference League, so we have to finish fourth if we want to get Champions League football. So that's the first time he's kind of really spoken openly about that being like a challenge to the players and that being something that they're focusing on. Obviously, we've only got 4 games left, so he's left it pretty late. But
we'll say, especially with a team like Spurs chasing you, points on the board are way more important. Like you just wouldn't expect Spurs to go.
Yeah, scoreboard pressure, hugely important. Even if Villa are 7 point. I feel like we've skipped loads here and just kind of gone straight to the top 4 race. But yeah, even if Villa are 7, so Villa play Chelsea on Saturday and Tottenham don't play again until Sunday against Arsenal. So if Villa can even take a point against Chelsea and have a 7-point gap, a +5 goal difference, I think we've got. Spurs are going to be looking at that and kind of thinking we have to win all 3 games in hand, and with the fixtures I've got left, that's very, very difficult.
Yeah, flicking back to that Conference League game, I learned a rule I didn't even know existed with the Martinez getting a second yellow and not getting sent off.
I mean, it was a hot topic during the kind of preparation for the shootout, because obviously he's been booked. We know he's been booked. He was booked very early in the game.
He got booked for time wasting or something, did he?
Time wasting in like the 35th minute when we were losing.
It's so Martinez, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, there was in our Villa WhatsApp group thing that we have, there was a direct question, like, if he gets booked again, is he going to get sent off? And none of us knew. I think it was a very Martinez thing to do. So we were kind of expecting him to get booked. And then, 1 penalty down and the card gets flashed. And I'm just like, why isn't he walking off?
Yeah. I would say it wasn't very yellow cardable. He wasn't really doing a lot to get a yellow, like winding up the crowd a bit.
I think these refs in Europe...
that ref was ridiculous.
He had a strange old game, and I don't know if you saw the West Ham Leverkusen game, but that ref had a strange old game as well.
This ref knew the rules, though.
Yeah, he did.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it shows that they know these small nuanced things.
The weird thing is, I've never seen that happen in my 27 years of watching footy, and it happened twice in a week. Nana went up to the ref on yesterday and checked that he wouldn't get sent off before he did it.
I didn't. We were watching that live, and I didn't see that happen live.
Oh, what happened?
Nana got booked in the 90 minutes.
Exactly the same thing happened.
And he got booked again in the penalty shootout and didn't get sent off. But the one difference between Europe and Prem is that Martinez will miss the next game with a ban, whereas Onana can still play in the next match. Different in England.
That is ridiculous.
UEFA's, so.
Yeah, so I hadn't seen it ever, and it happened twice, and I was like, "What's he? He's going to do what?" Yeah, and then
I knew that I didn't know what was going on, but I expect the commentators or the producers or researchers on the show to be able to deliver something a little bit quicker than what they did, instead of them just saying, "Oh, we think the referee's taking it back," and he was just warning him that he could give him a yellow.
It was so
just like, don't be verbal processing your stupid ideas while you're commentating to 1 million people.
There was a strange thing during the game as well, that they had a handball shout, but his arm was right down by his side and whatever. Anyway, they're checking it, and the ref he does like kind of put his hand on his chest, but he kind of puts his hand on his chest to show that Cash's arm was down by his side, and like you could clearly see that's what he was doing. And the comms were like, they seem to be indicating that it hit his chest, and that's definitely not true, isn't it? It's like, no, that's clearly not what he's saying. Like,
Yeah, I want to discuss the Notts Forest tweets.
yeah, I mean, we have to. Yeah, let's move on to the weekend because
the Notts Forest tweets. So what I know about it, so you can fill in the blanks for me. What I know about it is that the Notts Forest game was going to be VAR'd by Notts Forest relegation rivals, Luton Town fan.
I have to, yeah, but I've got to stop you there immediately because both of these teams are rivals to Luton, and actually, why would a Luton fan want Everton to win? They want them in the fight. Like it's so easy to just completely write it off as not a thing.
Yeah.
I just I think the whole approach they've taken makes the fan opinion 100 times worse. Like fans just, the ref had a shocker today. That's why we lost. You just can't go out and tweet things like that. I just think I don't know.
So it was from Forest official Nottingham Forest Football Club Twitter account. They said pre-game that the Luton fan shouldn't be the VAR.
Yeah. So they released another statement today. We're talking on Monday.
Yeah. After the audio from the VAR room, aren't they?
Yeah, so they've requested the audio, which is like, we've heard lots of audio this season. We know the processes that they go through. Nothing special is going to come out of that. So that's a complete waste of time for a start. And the second thing that they've said, so the initial thing, yes, came from the official X/Twitter account, Matt. And but I think it's clearly, come from the top. Like, I think obviously this has been briefed to, we've worked in corporate businesses. We know how this stuff works. They've been briefed by somebody senior in the business to send out this tweet because at the end of the day, there's no substance behind it. Like they're saying they're considering their options. Well, you don't have any, so that's brilliant.
Yeah, great.
And then this follow-up statement today has, we want the audio, and said that they had expressed their concerns to the Premier League about whoever was on the VAR and his connections to Luton.
Who is he? What's the guy's name? Do we know him?
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
James, look it up in the background. Do we think that he's going to be caught on comms, like saying, "Come on, the Hatters"? Is that what they think is going to happen?
Exactly. Like, it's so nonsensical. And one of the things that they've said today is, we request. We request for him to be removed. It was dismissed. And
rightly so.
We raised. So we, in this instance, Nottingham Forest, we raised that if a controversial situation happens, then there could be, they used like a sideshow or circus act. They used something like a term like that. And it's like, it was just basically a threat. It was basically, all right, we've told you that this guy has a connection with Luton, and if there's a controversial decision that we don't like, we're going to kick up a stink.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. And it's so childish. Like, and the fact that they've got Clattenburg there and he's writing articles for the Daily Mail on Sunday night, it's all so managed. The Premier League have got to nip it in the bud.
What did Clattenburg say?
Well, he works for Forest, doesn't he? He's Forest's referee management position or something internally, yeah. And the FA have asked for the comments from all four of them. So Nuno was one, Neco Williams, Clattenburg, and one other. Basically, they're going to charge them with their comments because you can't say things like that in the press.
Yeah.
It's basically defamation, isn't it?
Yeah, they can't go around accusing these referees of lacking integrity without really hard evidence, and they just are never going to have that.
And how are you gonna like, as the showpiece to the rest of the game, grassroots football, junior football? How do you ever build up any integrity or respect for referees and officials if this is what you're doing? Like tweeting out that kind of stuff is it's irresponsible to the game.
Yeah, there's already way too much focus on referees, and they are just stoking the fires. And it's a real problem. I do want to say that like the last one of these three decisions that they're annoyed about should have been a penalty, and like I think that they got that wrong. But the way that it's being portrayed is that because they had three, they should have got it, and it's like there's not a compounding interest on penalty shouts. It's not when you have more than one in a game, you're more likely to get the next one. You want that to happen, and like sometimes it happens because of crowd pressure and whatever, and there are those intangibles. But like they all have to be judged on their merits. And the first two, it's just like, well, he hasn't given it, so it doesn't like he could have given it, he could have not given it. There's reasons for
VAR. We see VAR has to have enough evidence to overturn a ref, right? It's on field because they're trying to support. So you can say Stuart Atwell's the VAR, however many times you want to say it, but it's the guy in the middle that's not given the decision three times, which he's not a Luton fan, he's not a relegation fan. It's completely ridiculous, and I don't think they're endearing themselves to anybody else by doing this. They're just making themselves the mockery of the league.
Crazy. So what's happened then? We'll wrap this up now. What's happened then is that Everton have won. Mm-hmm. So Everton, a much needed win with a 8-point deduction. They've won, which has secured their position a little bit more. And it didn't really matter anyway because Luton got absolutely crushed by Brentford, 5-1. Brentford, actually, that was fairly big for Brentford because they weren't terribly far away from relegation. They're mid-table. I didn't think they had that performance in them, but they were incredible.
Same for Palace, big win for Palace. Them completely out of it. I do.
What was a 5-2 against who?
West Ham at home. Palace hadn't scored 3 goals at home in the first half all season, and they scored 4 out of nowhere. New manager, they've been threatening for a bit. Played well against Liverpool. Played well against City in patches as well. Yeah. They have been threatening it, so wasn't over to see them play well.
Burnley decided to have a game as well.
That's a championship game. Burnley versus Sheffield.
Is it too little, too late?
I think it probably will be. They've got a difficult run now.
Okay.
But that is not as big a factor at this stage of the season as it is earlier in the season. Strange things can happen, and when a team of momentum can carry on picking up wins or at least points, and points at this stage of the season are important as well. So, yeah, they've given themselves a fighter's chance, but it's probably going to be too little, too late, I would think.
There's some big games down there. Like Luton have got to play Everton at home. Luton have got Fulham at home on the last day. Fulham might have nothing to play for by that point.
Forest Burnley last game of the season as well.
Early last game. So, yeah, it's not like it's fixed at all.
That's exciting stuff. Not in the league, but in the FA Cup, the Magic's back. We spoke about the magic of the FA Cup in the early episodes. But FA Cup magic on full show. Who wants to talk about that?
I mean, it was perfectly timed because the FA Cup's been pretty well discussed all week with the replays getting scrapped in the same week and people saying FA Cup doesn't mean that much and the magic is going away. Perfectly timed. If you want to talk about it, like United coasted for 45 minutes, 60 minutes, they were 3-0 up. And then obviously Coventry got a couple of goals out of nowhere and then made a game of it. I genuinely think there would have been Coventry fans who probably would have left at 60 minutes and then they could have got pumped 5 or 6-0 at that point. But it was great to watch. Like I love the FA Cup and it really reminded people why it's so good. I do think if you're a United fan, going through is great, winning the game's great, but it's probably saved Ten Hag's job.
You think it saved it?
Yeah.
Don't you think the game probably exposed him more?
If he lost that game, I think he's done.
From that position.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's probably held on for whatever hope he had. If he can beat City in the final, he's probably got himself another season. But he could have been gone after that game if they'd lost.
Yeah.
What was your opinion on the game? Did you watch it?
Yes. Yeah. So we, obviously I was at Villa. So we saw that it was, I think there was a bit of chat in the crowd. I kind of asked a guy who sits in front of me if he's in the United scoring. So they were winning 2-0. I just kind of dismissed it. I was like, oh, that's a shame.
Game over.
Yeah. Didn't really think about it. And then when we were walking back, had a look at my phone and, it was 3-2. And like literally, as I was looking at my phone, the third went in. So we rushed back to the pub so that we could watch the extra time. club erupted when the disallowed goal went in. It's a real shame that I think there's been a lot of discussion about that, and there's some people who have this view that the offsides with VAR are just one or the other, that it's ones and zeros, and I'm not really of that opinion. I think it's if the guy drawing the lines had wanted that to be onside, he could have made it onside.
The automatedness will help that, but what I didn't like watching on TV is they didn't show super close when the pass was made. Like there was none of that was made clear to you. So I was like, I think that's a frame after he's kicked it. It should come on. So it's just so, like you say, it's just so interpreted to whoever's doing it.
And my issue with it as well is that he's just level.
Yeah, he's that benefit the doubt level for me.
Yeah, he's just level. It's nothing else. For years before VAR, this perception of level was there, and it wasn't really. It wasn't dismissed by anybody. It was a very real thing. But VAR has completely done away with that and introduced these other margins. I think that's they're really struggling to uphold. And like you say, the semi-automated stuff should help, but you're still going to have these tiny margins, which I don't think anybody watches football for, basically.
Yeah, there's always going to be bias, though, because if that was United scoring that goal, I'd be going, that looks a bit offside.
Yeah, miles off.
That's why
that's a fair.
Are there more goals? Are there more goals that are disallowed more than penalties awarded and more goals are given? So are we having more goals struck off?
I don't know. I haven't seen that.
I would say it feels like there's more goals that should be ruled out that a liner might miss. I think that's better for the game. But there's always going to be these ones where we can go, that's a goal, but the technology's ruin it. So pros and cons.
And to add some balance, I really don't think that's handball.
No.
On Wan-Bissaka. I just don't think that should be handball at all. So
because it's against United, we don't really mind.
All right, let's move. Oh, we spoke about Real Madrid, didn't we? That they could do that to anyone. And one of the reasons why they can do that to anyone is because of Jude Bellingham. And he did it to anyone against Barcelona, who are not just an anyone.
No.
I think this is really establishing his position as one of, if not the top footballer in the year. And not a sure thing for Ballon d'Or, but has to be in the mix. And I'll be interested to hear from you guys to who else could be. But scoring the match winner against Barca when Real Madrid are first in the league, Barca are second, and this kind of pushes you. How many points ahead are they now? 11 or 12 points with a game in hand or something. Season's done, and this game was game defining, and it was Jude Bellingham that scored the winner in extra time. I think it really cements his position. And if they win Champions League, I think it's a done thing that he's Ballon d'Or.
I disagree. I think in a year that you've got a Euro Championship, that has a huge weighting on it. If Mbappe goes and wins the Euros of France, and if they get to the final of the Champions League, I think he'd be within a shout. I think it would be a great year for Jude to win it. I think he's probably favourite if you look at the odds. But I think Mbappe, if they have a good Euros, is probably going to have a shout.
Did you see Ancelotti's reaction to that 91st minute winner?
No.
What did he do?
Nonplussed.
Knee slide?
No, utterly nonplussed. Just
been there before, hasn't he?
Yeah, turned around, paced a little bit. I think you could see that
Did he win the Champions League with Chelsea?
He didn't win it with Chelsea, no.
No, it's 1-4 with Real Madrid. Oh, it's 3 with Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Did you hear what Jude was saying about after the City Real Madrid game? He did an interview about Carlo Ancelotti. He said Carlo was yawning before the game.
Yeah.
Everything all right, boss? He's just so calm about it. I mean, you see some managers scoring last minute. That's Mourinho. He's losing a pair of trousers and they're ruined from knee slides. He's doing things that it's just outrageous. I just hope that he carries it into the summer with England and we do something pretty magical.
Yeah, I mean, that's so obviously doing that, Bellingham would be a shoo-in. If Real Madrid won the league, the Champions League, and then England won the won the Euros. But, it could be Kane that carries us there as well. And Bayern Munich is still in the Champions League. I think he's in the conversation.
I think England have great Euros and Phil Foden does well. He'd be in the conversation as well.
The fact that there's 3 England players, even for us to easily reel off 3 England players that are genuinely in the conversation at the moment is amazing. So,
yeah, that is nice. Yeah, I mean, that bodes well. But like we said, are they all just going to be really tired by the time Euros rolls around? That age-old excuse for English international sport when there's a tournament in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, Guardiola made some noises over the weekend, didn't he?
What do we think to that? So Guardiola thinks it's a disgrace, the scheduling that Man City have with all of these TV rights deals.
So next year, the Champions League changing is going to ruin a lot. I think you'll see more injuries next year. So for context, the Champions League is changing its format next year from the historical 4-team format where, top 2 go up, bottom team drop out, to I think you play 8 games, and the top 8 qualify for the round of 16, and then the next 16 play in a knockout game. So you play even more matches. So it'll just be a ludicrous amount of European football.
And I just think, he and Klopp seem to be the worst 2 for it.
But they have got some of the biggest squad depth and funds to deal with these competitions, and it's also their job. Like, it's your job to be a professional footballer, a professional manager and coach, to manage the team. It's not a surprise. It's not a surprise that if you're successful in every cup, then you play more games. And if you're successful and if you're the winners, then you'll be televised, which means that you'll be put on different timing slots. I don't like it at all. It feels, I don't know, is it like a distraction for the team or whatever? Like, he's making excuses for them, relieving some pressure. I don't know what it is.
It's political, is what it is. He's stacking the chips so that, I mean, other leagues do make allowances for their teams, and that's fine. So he's basically that he and Klopp, I think, like, their end goal was to try and get that through, and to kind of they're just putting their stake in the ground, basically. But they've got an embarrassment of riches, and EFL clubs have to play Saturday, Tuesday, like, quite a lot.
So do they want to play? Do they want to play Wednesday, Sunday? Is that what the goal is?
That's what he wanted this weekend, but he'd have wanted something else another weekend. It's like, Villa had to play Thursday, Sunday. So did West Ham. Like, that's just what you've got to do. Wednesday, Saturday isn't outrageous.
Would he be annoyed playing against a team that didn't have a midweek fixture because they're not in Europe? Like, is that next?
But that's the way
we didn't. Fulham had 7 days off. We had 3 days off. But you're in the Champions League. They're not.
Exactly. You want to be fighting for titles, don't you? So what are you complaining about?
I have a slightly different view on it. I think, they do moan and they have really big squad depth, but I think a lot of football at the moment is a bit of a cash grab at the players' expense. Like, they're putting on more Champions League games. They're making them go to Club World Cups to play against Saudi teams. Like, some of these things are ludicrous, I think, and they're taking their piece of the pie.
That's driven by the clubs as well, though. They're trying to maximise their revenue. I think Spurs are sending their squad to Australia to play.
Yeah, I agree.
Friendly 72 hours after the season ends.
Yeah, that is. And you think some of the players that are going to the Euros should never be playing in that. That should be their few weeks off. I think you're going to get to a point where there's going to be reserve squads rocking up to FA Cup and League Cup games if it continues like this.
City have been pumping money into that academy for years. Yes, it jeopardises your chances of winning that game, but if you have a long-term view, then those players having good experiences might mean that they're more likely to play for your first team in the future. Like, they can complain all they like, but they have enough top-quality players to rotate as much as they like.
They do, but we want to see the best players playing the biggest games. That's probably the other thing you want to say.
Yeah,
you
sure.
Do, and they probably want to
prioritize your games. Then
they probably want to play in it too. And this is like, it happens quite frequently, and it's happening at the minute in rugby. So in the Europeans, in the Champions Cup last weekend, the Bulls came up from South Africa to play against Northampton, and you didn't recognise the squad. Like most of their team, probably 8 or 9 out of the 15 are in the South Africa squad, and barely recognise the name on the team sheet that came up and played. And then people are bemoaning it, like you don't value the competition. They're prioritising the league. Like you gotta choose sometimes. You can't win a treble every season. Sometimes you just gotta win the title. And like Man City have done before, like when we know they've been prioritising the Champions League, they just so happen to win the Prem as well. But their intention was to prioritise the Champions League.
Yeah. My fundamental issue is that he's saying these things and he feels this way because he wants it to be easier for City to win everything. And I think it should be harder for them to win everything. Like, it shouldn't be that the game is constructed around the bigger teams having a better chance.
Exactly right. Oh, you're so right.
It should be that if he wants to win everything, he's got to come up with a way to do it, and he's got to use the resources at his disposal, not just complain about it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, last thing on this, because we've got to touch on some other bits, but when you go into like Europe squads, you can only name so many players. So some of those things will have to change. You'll have to name but X amount of academy players to support your squad. Because if you just need a 30-man squad, whatever it is, teams like City will just get even stronger because they're just going to build even larger squads. So yeah, I don't think the whole treble, like quadruple, will be able to go on much longer if there's more games being played. Because like you say, you just can't keep it up in every competition.
No. In another sport that is also increasing its fixtures every single year, Formula One.
Great segue.
It does seem like the season is so long. From the off season, from when the last race was last year, I think it was October, November time, to then be starting testing again in January, and first race comes around in March. It feels like such a short time. But now we are in full swing of the season and took a trip east to Shanghai. They had the sprint race, and everyone thought it was all going to be different when Lando Norris took pole for the sprint race and Hamilton was second and Verstappen was a little bit further down the grid. I think he had just been told to go easy, because as soon as the sprint race started, he just whipped through the pack and opened up a 13-second lead in a 19-lap race. It was just ridiculous. And then did a very similar thing actually in the race as well. Was just so far ahead. He has pit stops in excess that he can make. So it's just about the rest of the grid, really.
I mean, I'm listening on the radio, and they barely mentioned him.
No point.
It was literally, there were some interesting things going on though with the safety cars and the stop strategies and stuff like that as well, being different and stuff. So there were some interesting things going on behind Verstappen that they could talk about. But yeah, they just barely mentioned him.
Yeah, I think only Sainz has beaten him in the last year or so. Obviously, he's only not won 2 races, and Sainz won both of those. So it is like the sport. Obviously, the season's getting longer, and it's slightly harder to deal with when it's the same person in every race. The really sad thing is behind Verstappen, it is great. Like, you're not seeing the same people come second, third, fourth every week. There's a lot of good racing there. But yeah, it's going to be a long old season. I think on the sprint day and the sprint qualifying, you saw the quality shine through of like Alonso and Hamilton, who could, they don't have the best cars by any stretch of the imagination, but second and third.
And Norris, if it wasn't for him having his time struck off.
Yeah. Oh, no, they did not see they reinstated it.
Oh, did they? Okay, we'll scratch that.
So he was on pole, but he got overtaken by Hamilton in corner 1, and then Hamilton led for 8 or 9 laps before Verstappen just tore him apart.
Oh yeah, of course he did. Sorry, I was looking at the end result, not the qualifying. Yeah, and then so in the race, one thing I was going to draw out of the race is I actually felt like maybe for the first time what you saw in the end result was the actual first driver status in most of the teams. So the positioning at the end of the race was Max, who is obviously Red Bull's number 1 driver, Lando, probably is McLaren's number one driver. Piastri's got potential, but I think McLaren probably see him as their number one still. Then obviously Perez is number two. Then Charles Leclerc, who Ferrari have put their
Eggs.
in his basket.
Correct. Yeah.
And then closely behind him was Carlos Sainz Jr., who will not be with the team next year. So Charles got fourth and is the number one driver. George Russell, interestingly. So
going him to number one driver.
I've had him for the last 2.5 years. He has outperformed Lewis. Well, he has. He had issues. He had issues with his car last year, but he's the faster driver of the two.
I don't know if I agree with that fundamentally, but I think they're super evenly matched. But Lewis is the greatest of all time, so it doesn't really make a difference. Does it?
You feel like that goes in the plus column, yeah?
That definitely goes.
Okay, well, we'll talk about is Lewis the greatest of all time when we talk about sport domination, because I don't think he's won more titles than Schumacher, has he?
A level now. Well, technically Lewis won in Abu Dhabi, so he's on 8. But yeah,
Technically, Lewis won in Abu Dhabi. Well, I don't think you can give him a title that he wasn't awarded. And then we go further down. Hulkenberg for Haas, definitely the number one driver. Alpine's a very close one between who's number one between Ocon and Gasly, but it probably is Ocon. Albon obviously is for Williams. So the running order. The running order probably is pretty legitimate for who were the quicker drivers out of the two in each team, which I found quite interesting, except for the one that James disagrees with, just because he's...
I mean, last year they qualified the same, 11v11, and Lewis finished ahead of him 12 times. And he outperformed him on points and laps ahead.
Yeah, but if you look at the DNFs and the car challenges that he had, and Lewis was also given preferential strategy.
Is it something to do with George being from the same area of the world that you are?
Both being born in Kings Lynn Hospital, and George and Matt both being from Wisbech, has absolutely nothing to do with my objective view.
Speaking of where people are from, how wholesome was that for the Chinese driver who finished?
It was lovely.
Yes.
He went to I think it was Q3 somewhere, and the crowd went absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the race, I'm not sure if you saw it, so it's like 1, 2, 3 cars lined up on the grid, and then they had like a little block for you to park up behind him. And they got out, and obviously a little crowd. It was lovely to see.
Yeah.
It was incredible, and it means so much. It means so much to them, and it means so much to him. It's just a great story in the sport that's pretty boring at the moment. It's really nice to have those moments,
and it's nice that they feel like that just because he's there.
Yeah,
like he's 14th. Like it was.
I think F1's there's only 20 people that can race in F1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
there is 1.3 billion people in China, so you'd think there should be one. But it's great. I've not been in China for 5 years, and I actually really like the track, and the racing is usually quite good. So it was good to see it back.
Was it not processional again?
Every race is going to be processional. It's the same thing every week.
Yeah, you're right. It's the width of the car. They can't overtake. But the DRS train is ridiculous. One thing I was thinking about with the DRS train is, do they only allow for DRS qualification every other lap? What do you think?
What, as in that's some way to stop it?
Yeah, so you get DRS for the next lap, and then you have to qualify for it on the next lap again.
No,
and then
then
it's not just all in the rear car's advantage.
Yeah, I don't know how you would do it.
They just want more action.
Yeah, the car's got to be thinner. That's the fundamental issue. But the cars could be as thin as you want, and Verstappen would still be 20 seconds up the road at the moment.
Yeah, you got to get close to him to overtake him.
Honestly, first lap. So they've even this year they've brought the rule forward. So I think it used to be activated in either the third or the fourth lap, and now you can use it after the second or third lap, whatever.
Yeah.
And so after one lap on Sunday, he was already 1.5 seconds ahead. So it just doesn't make a difference.
How much of it is the fact that he's in front?
There's a lot to it, right? He's got a great car, but he's fundamentally Right there, he enjoyed the balloons. He's got a great car. He's a great driver, but being in front.
So for any listeners, the stupid new Google Meet emojis that if you are smiling as much as Joel is whilst he listens to James talk, Google Meet just pops some balloons up in front of your face. If you thumbs up, you get a thumbs up and many other things. James is trying to get it to do a thumbs down. You've done it. That's why we were giggling. Go on then, James. Fundamentally,
best driver at the moment, best car, but being in front, you can look after your tyres a little bit better. You can manage the race. You're not sat behind something so your brakes don't overheat. There's a lot of benefits of being up front. There's a famous quote.
Yeah, the dirty air. So your brakes overheating, the turbulent air that you get from the car in front. You get the slipstream, but it's also turbulent air, Joel. So it's not comfortable to drive in, and it has a negative effect on the performance of the car. So Verstappen's driving in clean air all of the time.
Yeah, I think Alonso made a bit of a pop at Hamilton a couple of years ago because he only knew how to drive from the front, because it's probably a bit of a different race when you're behind someone. Like you saw the first safety car restart, like Hamilton, Verstappen obviously has the whole train, like he's in charge of it restarting after the car goes in. And you saw he slowed down before the hairpin, which made everybody slow down, which is where the Stroll-Ricardo crash came in, because you should not expect to be that slow in that corner. Leading is definitely a benefit, but you have to be the quickest to lead. So it's his own prerogative to do that. Sounded very Michael Owen that one, but we'll move on.
So incredibly dominant in the sport, Lewis Hamilton will segue over to incredibly dominant in the sport, Ronnie O'Sullivan. So Ronnie's won 7 world championships. He's won 7 masters. 8 masters, and he's won 8 of something else that's important, the equivalent major in snooker. What is it?
So he's won 80 events, something like that. But he's a bit of a weird one, because he's probably the biggest person in sport who probably doesn't even like their sport that much.
Yeah, I was going to say he's also sat out a lot, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely back into it now. There's quite a lot of like Saudi matches going on. He travels quite a lot with it, so he can finally earn probably the money he always thought he should have earned. Like obviously, the money
similarly to Live Golf, though, they don't get ranking points for those ones.
Does it matter for Ronnie?
It doesn't. He's still world number one. He's world number one, despite taking part in half of his events being non-ranking events. He's just so far above the rest of the competition this year. He is. I imagine when we did. This will be interesting, actually. When we did the odds for the Masters Golf at Augusta, how dominant Scheffler was, what the odds are for the World Championship in snooker. I would be interested to see if he is more of a favourite than Scotty Scheffler was. I imagine he is.
Well, it will be now that Salvy's out, won't it?
Yeah, Ronnie's 2-1. Which is, I think that's what Scheffler might go off at for the next major. Like this domination in sport. Obviously, Ronnie has done this for probably 20 years in snooker, but what we're seeing from Scheffler is just absolutely nuts.
Reigning champion Brissell out.
Yeah, Chun's 3-1, so they fancy him.
Jester from Leicester, Mark Selby out. Judd Trump still in. 3-1 though. When you're giving 2-1 on Ronnie and then you give 3-1 on someone else, seems a bit ridiculous.
I always remember Judd Trump meant to be like the protege, like the next version of Ronnie coming through when he first started.
But then Ronnie kept playing.
I'm not going anywhere, so he didn't get the chance. But yeah, I love watching Judd Trump play. He is very entertaining.
Can we see past Ronnie for this one? Probably not.
No, but snooker's one of them really, really weird sports where I like to play it, I can watch it a bit. But if anyone said, "Do you want to go and sit and watch the snooker?" I couldn't think of anything worse. I'd really struggle to sit there in silence with the radio in.
I don't think it's bucket list for me going to the Crucible and watching it, but I think I would like to definitely go and watch a session.
If it was Ronnie, maybe, yeah, but I couldn't go watch Mark Selby versus Sean Murphy. I think I'd struggle with that one. What do you, in terms of dominating their sport, right?
Yeah, I feel like we need some
some comparisons.
Some criteria.
Yeah, there's got to be. I mean, the ones that jump out at me: Tiger, Tom Brady, Phelps, and Bolt.
Well, isn't it funny though? Isn't it funny that there's like you've called out? So Brady is team sport, probably Michael Jordan, team sport. To stand out as the best player in your sport, in a team sport as well, I think is quite phenomenal. Someone like Pele. I don't want to talk about Pele really, because my personal opinion on Pele is there's absolutely no competition as well, and he just played in South America for.
Did they not? This is massively sidetracking, but did the Brazilian government sort of get involved to say that Pele was a Brazilian-owned product and he couldn't be exported to another club? Is that not why he stayed there?
I don't know. He went to America eventually. He went to Cosmos.
He did, yeah. He did the last 2 or 3 years there. That sounds very like a very Carlos Tevez-y kind of deal.
Yeah, how Brazil turned Pele into a national treasure to stop him from leaving the country. So maybe that's why his stats are inflated. But yeah, football has Messi. The weird thing is, you mentioned like American football. You just say no.
I said Ronaldo.
Let's not be silly.
Which one?
Well, CR7. I mean, yeah, you talk about Messi's domination, but like it was coupled with Ronaldo's almost equaling a lot of his feats as well.
Yeah, probably. Well, you can't say he dominated the sport because there was other people that were that good as well. Whereas you talk about golf and Tiger in the 2000s, Brady at the Patriots, there was no one that really got close to him.
And it was with Brady. Like it wasn't just Bill Belichick's program; it was Tom Brady's. It was Tom Brady play creation and the people that he played with. Like there's a wide receiver running back, Wes Welker, who basically would just call Tom and see where Tom was going on holiday, and he would go to the same place on holiday just so that they could throw and catch the ball.
The greats bring others up with them as well. It's not that they're just great. They elevate everyone else. Like MJ was probably the biggest example of that. People said he was a horrible teammate, but he made everyone play much better because his level of competitiveness was just off the charts. But you talk about individual sports where people just dominate, like Serena Williams. No one really got close to her when she was at the top of her game. We've got Floyd Mayweather on there as well. There are goats of their sport. I just think it's so mental to see people who are that much better than anybody else in their category, where if they didn't exist, you'd have different names at that time of the year. Like think like Tiger's era of golf, if he wasn't there, Phil Mickelson's probably considered the best player to have big of a golf club, but he's not. He's considered the number 2. It's mental.
Well, it's a similar story in the recent era of tennis as well, isn't it? Like you've got Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and Murray, all of who would have racked up Grand Slam after Grand Slam. Any other era, and the fact that they were all there at the same time probably means that none of them are in this conversation because.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Djokovic probably stayed a little bit longer, didn't he?
I say about Federer though. When you look at the record of who Federer beat for his first 7 or 8 Grand Slams, not like big ranking names. You struggle to name them.
In terms of an individual sport, has there been an occasion like there was in tennis where the top 4 players were that fiercely competed? Like every major was usually a Nadal versus Federer semi or Djokovic. Nadal semi. I just can't think of another example like that.
Is any other sport set up in the same way though that it favours seeds in that direction?
That's a great point. Yeah, because a lot of them you have fields, won't you?
Say that again. Sorry.
That's a great. Oh, I don't want to say it again. Yeah, I do want to say when you consider. Domination of sport at the moment, and I would like to bring it back to golf, but what Scheffler is doing is we've not seen it really for 10 years when it was McIlroy. We've had people in different phases, but Scheffler's played 5 events, he's won 4 of them, and he came second in the other one. It's just absolutely nuts to watch. People, I think Justin Thomas was on some commentary over the weekend saying he's playing the best boring golf you'll ever see. Like everything's down, like it's not entertaining to watch because he's not getting himself out of trouble. It's just dramatic.
Well, we spoke before the Masters, James, about like Scotty can scramble as well, but he's not had to.
I don't know if you saw the chip on Saturday night at the Heritage where he's over the back of the green and people thinking he's going to do well to get up and down for birdie. Just hold out for eagle, and it was just
chipped in. Yeah.
Well, this is just
I did see that. I was going to say I didn't see it, but I did see it, and it was just so normal to see him do that kind of thing. Like
I think he's just a place where his golf is so freeing. Like the outcome doesn't matter to him. Like he's won all these events. He's about to be a dad. Like golf.
Has he had the baby yet?
No, still not. I think it's next week.
So it wasn't actually due particularly soon. It was
close
to the Masters, was it?
Yeah, it was in 2 weeks of Masters, so it could happen. But yeah, it definitely got overhyped.
Yeah.
And then in the women's side of the golf, Nelly Corder's won 5 in a row now. So it's literally, I think that's her 11th LPGA Tour win, and she's now won 5 on the bounce.
Oh, she won like 13, 14.
I
think she's won 13 on the LPGA Tour. The thing you were saying about before we were recording the pod, James, about Hare and Scheffler.
If you put them in the if they play the same course, Scheffler plays off the tips and Nelly plays off the ladies' tees, I think it'd be a great game. It'd be a good thing to watch. I've watched a little bit of women's golf because she's playing that well. It's probably putting more eyes on it than it would without it.
Yeah,
it's just unbelievable to watch. Like it's so consistent, and it's technically like the most sound thing you can watch for a golf swing. So yeah, definitely more eyes on the LPGA Tour because of what she's doing. So that's got to be great for the sport.
Yeah, definitely. And similarly in tennis, we just touched on her name, but Serena Williams had domination in women's tennis. Absolutely incredible. Before her, obviously, Navratilova, and her longevity as well, and her doubles wins, and doubles isn't an easy game. It's a totally different type of tennis. It's probably similar to like T20 and Test cricket. The difference between playing doubles and singles tennis, I think that is pretty phenomenal, and I think like deserves a mention. She'll appreciate the mention when she listens back. One thing that I actually forgot to mention about Jude Bellingham, and maybe hopefully in 10 years' time he'll be part of this conversation. I think he actually won the Laurier's Sport Award for Breakthrough Young Player, was just announced today. But the actual Sportsman of the Year or Sports Person of the Year was given to Djokovic again.
Oh, really?
But so Federer was going to be the greatest tennis player of all time. And then Nadal comes along and, there's a bit of competition, but he mainly is dominating on one surface. And then Djokovic comes along a couple of years later and beats them both and then just keeps winning the longevity of his career.
Yeah.
And I don't find him very likable as a person, but you just can't help but admire the ability on the tennis court.
Do you think the longevity side of a pro, like that's going to go away? Like you're seeing 15-year-olds come through and compete at tour levels now. Like, is it going to be more difficult for someone to have a 20-year career in some of these sports if there's so many good young people coming through?
I don't know, because what we know about preparation and recovery in sport that we didn't even 15, 20 years ago, I think that's come on leaps and bounds. And what Tom Brady puts it behind, and he had a physical career. Like he get smashed 10 times a game and properly sacked 10 times. Well, he wasn't getting sacked 10 times a game, but he was getting hit 10 times a game. And playing well into his 40s and looking at a comeback now, and he puts down to his recovery. James immediately looking to see about Tom Brady possibly coming back next year. He puts down to his TB12 method, his recovery method, and prep method. And
he trademarked it.
He trademarked it. He's got a book about it. Both KJ and I have. I audio booked it. I listened to it. It's just like basically a sales pitch. But yeah, interesting stuff.
Honourable mention before we finished for LeBron James.
Yeah, 100%. People, yeah, I think it would depending what era you're from. Like people who lived through the MJ era will say there's no one ever better than him, but the young people that probably didn't see MJ play will go LeBron's better.
Yeah, it's like the Maradona Messi thing in football.
Yeah, they're just two absolute monsters of their sport. But I think you're seeing exactly what you just said, Matt, about recovery and how people look after their bodies is why LeBron is still going at 40 years old. Is he 40 now?
We checked this the other week, I feel like. I feel like we had this exact conversation.
He is 39 years old. So
there you go.
There you go. In his 40th year, yes, you were right.
Yeah. So LeBron James definitely want to say. And I know
we said they get their minutes managed. Like contact sport is very different. And someone actually worth a mention, Wayne Gretzky. And I think younger people probably won't know the name Wayne Gretzky now, but certainly like having no exposure to ice hockey, particularly when I was younger, like I knew the name Wayne Gretzky. Like he was the most famous ice hockey player on the planet. And there are other ones but yeah, Wayne Gretzky, like Mayweather, we touched Mayweather, but Mayweather 50 fights undefeated, and anything can happen in a boxing match. And he went across 5 weight classes as well.
That's the thing with him, moving up and down the weight.
Pound for pound, just
phenomenal. So I don't think we're going to put a name down, but I think it's really great to talk about these amazing sports people and why. That is a nice place to end there. So thanks everyone for joining. Welcome if you're first time listening. If you want to join in the conversation with us, contact us at allsportspods@gmail.com. Give us a like and rate us 5-star on Spotify, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks, James. Thanks, Joel.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.